Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm Dan. Welcome, Chris.
How you doing, Dan?
Doing all right.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Likewise. Today, we're going to kind of get into not completely abandoning the marketing the realm, but Chris and I have kind of noticed some trends. As we work with a lot of different marketing departments at a lot of different banks, and wanted to kind of get into today the traits and qualities we see in the marketing people that are most successful. And this is more a career, kind of a career episode more than a skills or tactics episode.
Yeah,
wanted to get everybody kind of thinking today, and yeah.
Well, you and I had even brought up a conversation that one of us had recently too with the CEO of one of our bank clients as well. That was they were looking at, they didn't have a full-time marketing director, or were looking at shifting around some internally, and asking, and it was thought-provoking, just to kind of go, well, okay, so now that you mention it, yes, we do see some commonalities with marketing directors and with marketing leadership that, I don't know, Dan, help things run smoothly. Seem to be, it's. I always say it kind of gets them off of their heels and onto their toes, both not only in, I guess, from a job performance standpoint, but even how their marketing gets out there. Because for a lot of the reasons that we'll talk about today. So I think it'll be a really cool discussion for folks to listen in on.
Yeah, I mean, we had the episode a little while back on culture, and kind of marketing starts with your culture, and I think this is part of it. It's the marketing is a reflection of your culture, but it's also a reflection of the people doing the marketing. So yeah, I think some of these, if you have some of these qualities, it's going to come across in the marketing, make it stand out more. So
yeah. Well, so we'll cover several distinct points here, and Dan, I kind of tripped into the first one too, which was about being proactive.
Yeah,
and that's we're not going to talk today about like time management and all of those job skills types of things, because I think there are a multitude of things that go into how can marketing leadership be proactive. I know you and I, one of our big soapbox things too is about strategic planning, ahead of time, and then tracking and following that plan.
Yep.
With flexibility. Yeah.
I think for me, this one is, there's a lot of stuff today. It's like, we want to go viral. We want to go, but the vast majority of marketing is not that, right? It's the vast majority of marketing is sticking to what you plan to do, especially for banks. Marketing campaigns take a long time. You may start seeing some, account opens and stuff immediately, but like building a brand awareness, which is the goal of most community banks, is time consuming. It takes months. And it's really easy to say, hey, we need to build brand, and then watch your campaign results daily and, get spooked a week or two in. You can kind of think of it like, investing for retirement. Like, a big market crash isn't, if you're going to retire 20 years from now, isn't going to make a big difference in the retirement. It will recover. And I think it's make a plan, stick to it. You need timelines of months to see if big things like brand awareness are really, really working.
Yeah. I was in a meeting with bank leadership and marketing director for one of our clients the other day, and the conversation was about how they really needed to increase market share in their branches in this part of the state, in the northern part of the state, and they were like, so they were trying to basically ask, how soon can we see ROI? And I was like, well, wait just a second. I mean, you can. But yeah, this is going to be a couple of new account openings and a new, increasing interest in possible mortgage loans and those type. I mean, this is going to be a, not crawl before you walk, but like you say, this is incremental. we're not going to look up next Thursday and you've increased market share, noticeably in this part of the state around 5 of your branches. That's just, this is going to take proactive strategic planning and, and marching in that direction. Yeah.
How often does the average person switch banks in their lifetime? Right. And it's you're getting the name out there and being ready and being top of mind when they do, but it's not very often. It's not switching, streaming services or something you can do on the fly. So make a plan with your marketing knowledge, make a plan with what you know about the community, and stick to it. I think this too, plays right into the next point, right? So the flip side of this, right, is practice saying no. Avoid the shiny objects that come along, because that's what gets you off of your plan.
Yeah. This makes me think about, Dan, my wife is real into Enneagram and, I've, over the years, work-wise and otherwise, done a lot of the personality typing and, everything else. And mine falls into the category typically of I have to work hard and be very conscious of saying no to things. Like you say, whether it's shiny object syndrome, cool new software platforms and this and that just, are more about the bells and whistles than being truly productive and efficient. But also even all the different media sources that knock on our door and want us to advertise and all those types, and there's so many different areas that, again, having that plan first, and if it's something that derivates from that plan, it needs to be a significant consequence, in improved efficiency or whatever the case may be, or a media opportunity that was just maybe is out of left field and it wasn't on the plan, but it needs to be very significant for consequential reasons. And if it's not, then you need to say no and move on.
Right.
So again, it's like that the personal practice of having boundaries is a healthy thing. Well, this is the business version of that.
Right. And it's just, what I do in my own strategic planning is I have a little space for the shiny objects. Right? On the side of the plan, there's a column that's just like, put other ideas here and, come back to them and later and see if they're still good ideas. It's kind of like impulse buying at the store. Like, do you really need that candy bar, that pack of gum? Like, it looks good when you're hungry and, in line, but, the next day you're not going to be thinking about it again. Yeah. So same thing applies here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that also looks like, this branch manager wants to run an ad in this, whatever, local horse riding magazine. And you're going, no.
Right.
That's not.
Well, and too, like, in our strategic planning recommendations, right, we always talk about we'll keep, some percentage, 10% of your budget to the side for stuff that comes up. So it's not to push aside every shiny object, or there's going to be opportunities that come up in the middle of the year, but rein them in. Say no to stuff. Say, okay, we've got some money left in this, 10% budget holdback, but there needs to be a decision. That horse, the horse training magazine ad should not derail, your social media brand building.
There you go. Yep. Well, Dan, so our next one that we had on our list too was about translating the bank goals well. And I think what we meant by that is, the CEO walks in and is like, hey, we need more deposits. Okay, well, there's a lot between that and implementable marketing that's going to impact increasing deposits, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the average bank, the average bank marketing program, the CEO comes in, this year is all about bringing in low-cost deposits. Mm-hmm. And the path of least resistance to looking like you're helping to do that is to just run a campaign that says, come switch, right? Open up an account online. But that's not really going to do it. You'll open up some accounts, right? But, I think the smarter approach, right? Maybe not smarter, but more successful approach, right? Is get into the nuance of okay, we need low cost deposits. Well, where are the parts of our community where we can get them?
Yeah. Identify the audience specifically, yes. Not our community. No.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Banks want to be everything to everyone, but your marketing messages can't do that. Mm-hmm. So who will you get these deposits from? how do you reach them and what do you say when you get there? So translate that goal of we need more deposits to, the right time, right place, right message,
There you go.
thing versus just a general brand, open an account online kind of thing. Because like I said a minute ago, the average person, switches banks only a couple times in their life. And so they really, and it's a painful thing to do. So, are you really going to get the average person to do that? Or are you going to, you're going to try to look for students that are graduating where all of them are opening up accounts? So you're going to look for, people at those inflection points in their lives. Like, what does that look like in your community? Where do most of those deposits come from?
That's right. And those action points and those pain, answering those pain points and all that is probably even more true on the loan side than it is on the deposit side. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. And then, Dan, we had mentioned budget management. It is another kind of a key trait. I guess that is, sometimes that means not getting to October 17th and you're out of money for the year. And you really need to run some digital ad campaigns and you don't have that, so you bump that to January. That's maybe one example, but yeah. But don't you think that budget management, takes foresight? It takes, sticking to that strategic plan. It's a lot of things.
Yeah. Right. If you spent the time at the beginning of the year thinking through the bank's goals and setting out the budget accordingly, it's going to be a lot easier to manage the budget through the year. So the banks we see that are successful with it are doing that, right? And the point about holding 10% back, like that allows you to be flexible throughout the year. That allows you to be more nimble throughout the year without deviating from your overall strategy.
Yeah. No, I think that's very well said. I was glad you brought that up a few minutes ago because having that Flexifund, that little side piece of your budget does help with some of those things that come up.
Yeah. Well, and too, like, I think all these things that we're talking about are all interrelated, right? So, just holding back the 10% isn't going to accomplish the other things we're talking about, but it's going to help it. There's a lot of these things that kind of go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the next one is something we've already mentioned is just on the messaging point of address the pain points. We talk about this a lot. Like talk about things in problem language. So if you need more low cost deposits, you need more. You want more first time home buyer loans. Like what's the pain point that you're solving that you can solve for that audience, and who are you solving it for? And then then your message, your calls to action, your creative can all reflect that.
Yeah, Dan, I think that our team as an agency, when we have conversations with, I guess what we would probably qualify as the most successful marketing directors, they are very clear on the front end about that messaging. And, for the most part, yes, they want us to do some content tweaking and where it is and, those types of things and how that message is marched out. But they're clear on what that is for the brand as a big B, but also even at a campaign level. What that campaign messaging is. So again, having that addressed up front, and that it's not, as you alluded to, going, we're a bank, come open a checking account with us. It's not that at all. It's how can these product or loans, product or services, loans, deposits, whatever they get, solve pain points. Yeah. You said that well. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so the next couple points here are more inward facing, more about, the marketing team's kind of, maybe it gets back to culture, maybe it gets back to just like curiosity about stuff, right? And, the first one of those is like, it's about how you manage internal relationships within the bank, right? Mm-hmm. Marketing is a department that touches a lot of other stuff. Right. So you've got to work closely with compliance. You've got to work with your leadership team to understand the goals. You got to work. You might have to, if you're a bigger bank, you might have to work across multiple branches that, are each doing their own drive up flyers or, local community ads, or even have their own marketing budgets. Right. And it's not that you have to control all those things to be successful, but it's, you need to figure out ways to work with them. Yeah. So I know, Chris, like in your, a few of your clients, like doing social media projects, there's a lot of trying to get content.
Yeah. From branch managers all over the place. And That's right. Leadership and all of those things that, it's a great example. You're trying to get content. So if you don't have kind of that internal networking, that breaks down really badly. But it also takes reinforcement from leadership that, hey, marketing is asking for these things, and that means it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good example. Another one that comes to mind, this is a former client of ours from several years ago, too, that we worked alongside the marketing director who kept getting specific directives from the president of the bank, and she was telling marketing exactly what to do and how to do it, and marketing knew that those were not always the best ways to do that. And there was no opportunity for going, hold on, wait just a minute. You give me the goals, and, here, if we use these platforms or these campaign messages or whatever, it's going to be a more effective way to do that. But marketing had no voice.
Yeah.
And that was because there was this dysfunctional relationship there. And guess what? That reflected in kind of the dysfunctionality of the entire system, which is one of the reasons they're no longer a client, of ours, because they were like, well, marketing just doesn't work.
Right.
Well, yeah, you didn't give it. Yeah. You're not letting marketing do their job. So
there's an element of trust. There's an element of trust there, right? Of like the leadership of the bank should be focused on, like, what do we want to accomplish? We, to meet our goals, we need 3% growth in deposits and loans, and that type of thing. And then it's kind of marketing's job to say, well, here's how we're going to help you go get that. Trust the skill sets of the marketing team, and vice versa. Trust marketing team should trust the skill sets of the leadership, and that gets back to the culture point.
Yeah.
If your team's culture is built on that stuff, and you've got that mutual trust, it's going to help with that, and help when you get mid-year and you're not seeing the results you want. To not just blame it on marketing, but say, marketing's a trial and error kind of game, and sometimes stuff doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't want us to leave this topic without you mentioned compliance when you introed this topic a minute ago. But, sometimes, and not always, but there's this inherent contention between marketing and compliance, and like, oh, well, compliance's job is to say no. Yeah. Well, no, it's actually not. Compliance's job is to make sure that we're compliant. And sure, sometimes that's giving kickback and saying no, but there's got to be some level of coordination, probably mutual respect. And again, you mentioned culture again, but this culture of, hey, we really need to work together here, because at the end of the day, we're trying to make the bank be as successful as possible. Compliance and marketing are both trying to do that in somewhat different ways, but they've got to dance well together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it takes, our next point is related to that, right? Is successful marketing directors, marketing teams stay educated on trends and stay up on what competitors are doing. And I think, you got to know a little bit about compliance. You got to know what you can and can't say, and get creative within that, and look at what competitors are doing. And we're in a realm now in 2025 where, regulatory environment is changing. And you got to stay up on that. It's going to change what compliance really means. And, you're going to be able to do some stuff and do some different stuff. And your competitors are going to know that too. So staying, involved in that, rather than just, hey, we got to keep this Google ad running. Yeah. But stay up on what's happening in the industry, stay up on what's happening with your competitors, and stay nimble, right? And that doesn't mean diverting from your strategy and your budget, but it means within that,
it's working better within it.
Yeah, you might need to tweak some messaging throughout the year, right? Maintain that kind of unique market positioning as competitors change what they're doing, as they open new branches, close branches, that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, as more and more spend trend in marketing has moved away from and shifting from traditional and ever increasing in digital spectrums, which we know and understand, then it's staying on the cutting edge of what those digital strategies need to be. And to your point, utilizing digital strategies, how do we reach this specific audience set best?
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that? Dan, we get asked all the time, well, do we need to be on TikTok and Snapchat and, all those kind of things? And again, I'm using the social example here. And of course, the answer is depends. But, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, we can run TikTok ads, without you having to do content on TikTok. Those are two different discussions. Does the bank need to be spending time creating content? And I'm not just picking on TikTok, but, spending time creating tons of content on there? No, probably not. Not for a community bank, for a community financial institution. That's not going to, but do they need to run some ads on there? Or maybe they're doing student checking accounts, or maybe they're doing, whatever the case may be. And we've done some of those campaigns, on a digital ad spectrum with good success, with some decent conversions on there. So, yeah, that's the type of trends and tactics that marketing directors really need to stay on the front end of, what those opportunities are.
Yeah.
Which is very closely related to kind of our last one here around technologies, and platforms and all of that. And Dan, we know that in the day-to-day life for marketing leadership, it is so hard to be an expert on everything. So now I'm giving some legitimacy to the benefit of working with an agency like us. Because, I'll just be transparent about it, but my team is filled with 20-somethings, 30-somethings, they are gurus at this digital stuff. And me here, I'm a old 50-something that, and it's not always obviously an age thing, but we've got folks that are on the cutting edge of those types of technologies and digital trends and those types of things. And a marketing director, marketing leadership and bank leadership don't necessarily have the time, opportunity to stay on top of those things at all times. Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's use resources that you have, right? Use your team. No one person can keep up on that, but other people on your team will. Associations that you're a part of. I know here in St. Louis, there's a big digital marketing conference. Right. That's not bank related. It's just general industry stuff, but take advantage of some of those things and keep up to date on the trends and a lot of banks, aren't on the leading edge of, TikTok campaigns and the newest stuff. Yeah. And that's almost can be an advantage. You have some time to catch up, time to understand the stuff. But, I think there's a ton of resources out there and a lot of marketing these days is not, I think the last couple of years, it's not necessarily a new technology or a new platform, but it's new ways of using it. And
there you go.
We've talked in the show, it's all about people. It's all about personal brands and things like that. And so it's it's more about keeping up the trends and the technology, right? Just get people into your ads, tell stories, things like that. And if you are kind of paying attention to the industry, you'll see a lot of stuff written about that. You'll see them at the conferences talking about that. So keep up by looking at a number of different sources and look outside the industry for input.
Great recommendation. Yeah. Don't have industry tunnel vision. Yeah. Sometimes others are doing it far better than us. A great.
Yeah, the banking association point, right? A lot of the associations help with here's how to warn your customers about fraud. Right. Or what's the campaign? Your bank won't ask that. What
right.
is that? Yep. Yeah. And that's great. I think that's a good campaign, but you can't only do that. You need to look at what other stuff is working, because I don't see the associations out there as much saying, make your campaign, make your messaging about people and stories. They're not saying that stuff. They're saying the regulatory, the important industry stuff. And it's what they're saying is important, and you should look at that. But it's not everything. You need to look for outside sources too.
Yep. Well, Dan, I know as you and I were setting up this episode, one of the things that we wanted to do too is remind everybody that we enjoy having conversations. So if you're listening to this episode and you're in leadership or marketing and all of that, is to encourage you to reach out to Dan and I through the show. If you want to go, hey, I heard you guys talking about these one or two things today, and they're really difficult for us. What are you guys? We love sharing best practices and better ways to do things, or even connect others through networking. Sometimes, because you and I are working with banks all over the country, Dan, and it's a good way to do things. So as we wrap up the episode, remind you to go to bankmarketingshow.com, reach out to us through that, and numerous ways to connect. And also the Bank Marketing Minute, Dan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that you can sign up for that on bankmarketingshow.com, or there's a form at bankmarketingminute.com where we'll go a little deeper on some of these topics in a written form, and, keep you up on the topic and what's going on the podcast as well. So,
yeah. In minute-long segments, not long form. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's what people were really enjoying about the Bank Marketing Minute too. So, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Dan, that was great sharing some of this. I hope it was insightful for our listeners, and probably a lot of our listeners going, "Oh yeah, I feel that pain." Those are things that I wish we did better, and those that are doing some of those well, we hope we had some useful points to make it even better.
Yeah. Hopefully this was insightful, made you think a little bit.
There you go. All right, Dan, appreciate it. See you on the next one.
Likewise. See y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.